an update on this 2022 quarterback class?
Yes.
I think this one has been a little bit of a roller coaster.
Yes.
Which I think is a good way to explain this quarterback class, also evident why, I think you're going to see a lot of mixed opinions here. I mean, last year, I think there was only one notable analyst that didn't have Trevor Lawrence as their number one overall quarterback. I think even in previous classes, it's been more chalky for who the top guy is.
Mm-hmm.
This year, I'll read off some of the names. Spencer Rattler of Oklahoma, he's our number one guy and a lot of people's number one guy. He's also DraftKings projected, first round pick right now, or number one overall pick.
Maybe not in the next draft board. We'll see.
Oh, wow. You might be making some changes with Rattler. So then you also have Sam Howell of North Carolina, Malik Willis of Liberty, Matt Corral, Ole Miss, Carson Strong of Nevada, Keaton Slovis of USC, and then JT Daniels of Georgia. Any names that are just scratching that list that you could see yourself talking about come April, or is that kind of the extent?
I think in terms of guys who are legitimately, top half first round conversation. Okay. That's probably they're
no Jaden Daniels.
I don't think Jaden Daniels. But I'm saying guys who are at near top 10, top 15 sort of prospects. That's it. And some of those I would say are very uphill climb. That even get into that range would be a far fetched for me. But the interesting thing is some of that at the moment, if I had the number one overall pick, I mean, looking at this quarterback class, I don't know if I want to take one of these quarterbacks. And now it obviously depends on how dire your quarterback situation is. But I think gun to my head right now, if I had to take number one overall, the guy I would take my chance on is Malik Willis.
Really?
Liberty. Just because none of these guys are complete quarterbacks at the moment. They're all so far away from looking like they can operate an NFL offense. So at that point, give me the most physically talented one. Give me the guy who can push the ceiling the furthest with his physical tools. And basically, Malik Willis gives you the floor of elite rushing ability. That guy is a running back build, running back rushing ability. He has that. So just give me that floor, and then let me see what I can do with the talent. Because Spencer Rattler is still not playing. He's not playing football, but he's not playing the game that everyone else is playing at quarterback. I don't know the best way to describe it. I'm going to have to think of a way to say it more eloquently because I'm going to be saying it all draft season. But the way he plays quarterback is just not how people play quarterback at the NFL level. And that's so concerning because you would hope that could change because Lincoln Riley's offense very much offers you a lot within structure. And he is still not taking advantage of it the way he should. And now he's super talented in his own right, but he's not nearly the runner, doesn't have the size that Malik Willis does. So I'm concerned about that. I think Howell has had the worst situation of these guys so far, but is not necessarily overcoming it in a meaningful manner and still kind of relying on go ball RPO. That's still that offense. Obviously, it wasn't necessarily going to change, but it's still difficult to project him to the NFL. Matt Corral is the one who's actually, of this bunch, who's really playing well. Now, again, Ole Miss hasn't played much in the way of top competition. We'll get to see him throughout the season, but I think he is actually looks like a guy who could be in that number one overall pick. If you're looking for the Zach Wilson, the guy who really lights it up his last year of college, Matt Corral is in that conversation right now, the Ole Miss QB.
I think he's tied for the lead in Heisman odds as well.
Yeah, and it should be. I mean, that Ole Miss offense is going to be tough to stop. And the one guy who I was really hoping for more and who had a massive, massive sort of test this past week, Carson Strong, I just don't think he passed it against Kansas State, Nevada quarterback, going up against Kansas State. Finished with a 67.7 overall grade or pass grade in that game. One really ugly pick. I just worry about him. He's just a one read, and getting off his first read is difficult for him. The speed and the accuracy suffers when he has to go past that. And now he's real quick and very accurate to getting to that first read, throwing with timing. But coming from an offense he does, at Nevada, competition he's facing, to not have that in his game, that's a developmental project then at that point.
I want to go back to Spencer Rattler. I know you just kind of ran through your guys that you feel all could be in contention for that top 10, top 5 type of selection. Spencer Rattler so far this year, just an 84.1 PFF grade, coming off a year where he had a 92.5, not seeing some levels of progression, not a single big-time throw. What's a big-time throw? Highly graded passes that are, you know, we
down
grade,
the football field.
Yeah, down the football field. Grade from -2 to +2. It's any single throw.
You know it when you see it.
You know it when you see it. Well, we hadn't seen it yet. 0 big time throws for Spencer Rattler. 5 turnover-worthy plays. You know, those are the concerns there. And I do think that when you do look at some of the outer structure stuff, in rhythm, out of rhythm, you know, outside the pocket, inside the pocket, so much of Spencer Rattler's work is being done outside the pocket. Also, you know, under pressure, which is volatile. It's, you know, yeah, it looks sweet. And, like, I think there's a lot of specialness to being able to do what Spencer Rattler does under pressure with his arm and all that stuff. There isn't – you need to win inside of structure more than you do need to outside of structure if you're going to be, like, sustainable success in the NFL. Do you see it correcting itself, like, at all? Like, or as they go into Big 12 competition, do you see it correcting itself to where everyone starts to – get behind him as this consensus #1 overall pick, or has he shown like no signs of actually getting this thing back on the track?
I don't think it corrects itself. I just think that's kind of who he is at this point. It's going to take a different offense, basically, a different voice in his ear to really change that.
The other quarterback I want to ask you more about was Matt Corral. You know, Matt Corral, I think, I think I kind of hit on it with Zach Wilson and like Joe Burrow, these guys that play like really well. How important is this bye week and then Alabama? Like, I think this is a big game. Remember we talked about that Joe Burrow game against Bama? Mm-hmm. Like this Matt Corral game against Bama. He's got an extra week to prepare. They have a bye this week and then Alabama the following week. I think probably game day, that's going to be a massive game. I don't know what that spread will be. I think Ole Miss will probably be a top 15, top 12 team in college football at that point. That, I think, is his biggest test, obviously, of the season. But if he comes out of that looking special, I do think this, you know, Heisman hype and also this top of the 2022 NFL draft hype will really start to boost.
Yeah, I agree. And that's like I think we just said about Strong. That was kind of Strong's last test. He can go light up teams in the Mountain West all he wants, and we're not really going to.
Not San Diego State.
But we're not really going to. It's not going to move the needle much. Matt Corral can light up Austin Peay all he wants. It's not going to move the needle much. We're going to come back to the tape this weekend against Alabama. Now, he looked solid against Alabama last year, but through SEC competition last year, it was the utter duds that you worry about. The 7 turnover-worthy plays against Arkansas, 5 turnover-worthy plays against LSU, and Arkansas came out in this like 3-safety defense, 3 high safety that Seth Galina wrote about last year. That's just he couldn't figure it out. He didn't know what to do. He was just throwing into safeties left and right, and that's kind of what you worry about. Is if sees something a little bit different, sees a real deal defense, how can he overcome? Well, we'll get that chance to see next week. Not this week. Next.
Biggest test for Carson Strong, I just looked it up. Left November 13th, 10:30 kick, San Diego State in San Diego.
We'll be staying up late for that one.
It's not going to be easy. I'll just say it right now. It's not going to be easy. Brady Hoke's going to be in his bag. I'll say it right now. All right, other 2 quarterbacks you didn't mention here, and maybe guys that you're already writing off of not being his first-round caliber players, Keaton Slovis of USC and JT Daniels of Georgia. Why? What? JT Daniels is grading well this year. He graded well last year down the stretch. Why is JT Daniels not, in that conversation for you?
Well, grading well this year, he played 1 game against South Carolina that he graded well in.
Stop.
Did you watch the Clemson game?
The Clemson game was horrendous.
Okay. We're good. We're good there. No, I mean, the Clemson game was almost comical in that they just were terrified of him throwing it away. His average time to throw in that game was 1.88 seconds. His average depth target was 3.5 yards on the football field. It was just like when your head coach, as a play caller, offense coordinator, is specifically not letting you, that means they themselves know that, hey, we can't let him take these chances down the football field. We can't let him throw away this game because they've seen him practice every day and they know how he operates. That's kind of an indictment in and of itself, is the head coach not letting you do things because they obviously know more about you than anyone else. So I'll just say that about him. And then Slovis, he's at very high risk of getting Keaton Slovis himself with how good Jackson Dart looked in his stead this past weekend. So Slovis is kind of Anthony Treash's take about him being #1 overall. It's on life support. It is on life support, and it's unfortunate. Any of the Jaden Daniels truthers also on life support. Any other quarterbacks maybe even not even eligible for this draft class? Again, surprising. I think it hasn't been a fantastic quarterback year so far. It's been a roller coaster. Brandon Armstrong for Virginia is grading super well so far this year. Grayson McCall. What about Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina? Oh, dude, McCall's just so skinny. I mean, I don't even think he got up to 210. He's a rocked up 210 now. He doesn't look. He's a rocked up 210 now. The guy who's interesting, who had a massive game this past weekend, Jake Haener, Fresno State, beating UCLA. The 2 throws he made on that last drive were spectacular. Now, is he a first-round type prospect? No, I don't think so. I haven't gone back and watched his tape this year, but it's name to watch.
Gotcha.
Hashtag
name to watch? No, it's not a freaking name to watch. Trevor Sycamore wrote a feature, a new PFF analyst here, wrote a feature on Jack Haener that comes out today on PFF.com.
Jake?
Yeah. Sorry.